Hey guys, welcome back to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. It's Brian again, just here solo one more time for another instant reaction. Probably about a week behind me really wanting to put this out, but it didn't really change. Putting 7 days behind the last time I watched the new Resident Evil 2021 didn't really change anything that I had opinion wise anyway. Um, I grew up a big fan of the Resident Evil video games. In 1996, I owned a PlayStation One, obviously, and purchased the first Resident Evil game. Played it all summer. There were no walkthroughs back then. There was no internet. There was no whatever. I mean, we played it all summer. Me and my buddy Jonathan all summer trying to beat that game and figure out the puzzles and everything. So that's still very ingrained in my own mind. And um, actually, the next summer, or maybe it's 2 summers later, I'm not real sure when Resident Evil 2 came out, but uh, Resident Evil 2, we did actually go and purchase the Walkthroughs Game Pro magazine, if I recall correctly. You young bucks might not know anything about those kind of things, but there wasn't much internet with walkthroughs and stuff like that. So we used the Game Pro walkthrough, and we went through and played the whole game and beat it. And that is where I stopped playing Resident Evil games. I dabbled, I think, a little bit in three, but that was it. Either it was my life, or either it was just the fact that I was burned out after playing 2 summers basically full of Resident Evil. I was in '95. I guess I was a freshman in high school when that came out, but uh, no, I wasn't. In '95, I was in sixth grade. I always remember that. Just sidebar. Little fun fact. I remember that I was in sixth grade because NBA Live '95 came out when I was in sixth grade, and for some reason I just remember that. Anyway, so the me being a fan of one and two uh, is relevant because, well, first let me back up again. I okay, I'm gonna say hated, very much so disliked the original Resident Evil movies that they made with Mia Jovovich and Ali Larder. I love Ali Larder. If you're a fan of the show, you know my love for Ali Larder. But and I think she played Jill Valentine in the originals. But it. I was so frustrated because the storyline from the game was so good that all you had to do was follow the game storyline and make it into a movie. I have been wanting to see that for years. I've been wanting to see that with every recycled Resident Evil movie that they kept putting out. I watched them, and that's probably why they kept putting it out. It's because people watched them, but they didn't have anything. I mean, they barely resembled the games, and I just very much so disliked that. So let me fast forward to the new Resident Evil 2021. I have been This has been on my right up top. Got to see this movie this year when it comes out. I think it was uh, last year whenever I first really kind of got into in 2020. I really was like, oh, okay, this is definitely on my list when I saw this. But I got to say the advertising wasn't very. It wasn't out there as much as I thought it would be. I guess they were just counting on Resident Evil fans to back this movie up. And anyway, it was very anticipated in my eyes. It was something I really wanted to see, and l- right off the bat, I was super disappointed. Okay, I trying to collect my thoughts here. I really think that they got closer, and they really were on to something. But a few things here. First of all, the reason I told you about my love for Resident Evil 1 and 2 video games is because they did follow, for the most part, the Resident Evil 1 and 2 games very closely, but they followed both games and they crammed them into one movie. And it's too much. It's too much. Why don't you just now? Yes, they do take place pretty close to simultaneously, but I mean, come on. Like, why cram them both into one movie? You just do part one. That's all you got to do. Just do part one, and you had a great movie. What are you doing? There's no character development, none. You don't care if you are not a fan of these video games. You hardly even know what's going on because they don't give you enough backstory. They don't give you enough, like I said, character development. Period for any of them. They it's ridiculous. You care about none of them if you're not a fan of the video game. Now, if you're a fan of the video game, you understand kind of what's going on, and maybe that's what they were going for. But why? The original story for Resident Evil is enough. You don't need to do what you did. Now, casting. I've read a lot of complaints online about the casting. They it wasn't as bad as people would lead you to believe online, but they did miss on a lot of casting. Like they did my man Leon dirty. Like that's number one. He's not even in the first movie. Like, come on. Like, just save him for the second movie because he's in the second game. But they did him dirty with the script, the way they wrote him. It was awful. And honestly, I'm sorry. Hannah John Kamen, like you're a great actress. I mean, you're much better than I could have done. But you're not Jill Valentine. Like she is not she was miscast as well, but she was also miswritten. Like her character again, and I can't just focus on her because it was everybody. Everybody's character was underwritten because they crammed so much into this movie. But I don't. I think Jill Valentine was miscast. Kaya Scodelario as Claire Redfield was perfectly fine. Um, Tom Hooper, I think, played a Tom Hopper. I'm sorry, played a great Wesker. But again, I'm going to spoiler free. This is going to be spoiler free, so I'm not going to ruin anything. But if you play the video games, you know about the twist with him, and it didn't hit. Nobody cared because you didn't care about him because you didn't care about him and his relationship with the team that he turned on. So I don't think it's a spoiler. Again, was it a spoiler for 30-year-old video game? Come on, I'm not. I'll leave it. There's no new spoilers for the movie if you played the video game. So, I mean, besides the fact that they tried to cram stuff in to the first one that wasn't in the first one, um, eh, I'm very disappointed. That's. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed with you. They could have done amazing with this, and all you had to do was follow the video game story. Uh, Positives, I would say that the way they handled the mansion, I thought was fantastic. Um, that they tried to stay close to the video games, and it was very very nice to see that. However, you tried to cram two into one, and it made it bad. Like it was cool to see the close up shots. Of the doors and things. If you play the video games, you'll understand that. But even if you didn't play the video games, they're cool shots, even in the movie. That was a lot of the stuff that happened in the video games that are Easter eggs in this movie are perfectly fine. Even if you hadn't played the video games, because they're great shots. Um, I I I would not recommend this movie. Sorry, I wouldn't. This is going to be a short little review, but that's kind of where I'm at as instant reaction. Like, and it's going to fail at the theater, and they're going to use that as the studio is going to use that as, oh well, guess what? It failed. I guess people don't want to see Resident Evil. No, for the millionth time, studio, we don't want to see what you did with the movie. We still want to see it done correctly. I'm not sure what the budget was, but there were some CG parts that were pretty bad looking, like really bad looking. Like the video game looked better looking, like that type of bad. So, and a lot of those CG moments happen in Resident Evil 2. So they didn't even need to be in this movie. Make the first game into the movie by itself, make your money, see it succeed because it's in a small location. It's not going to be a big budget. It just takes place in the mansion. You'll make a pretty big profit, then turn around, since you have such a big profit made and a fan base now built, turn around, make Resident Evil 2 video game exactly with the story. There you go. This is not hard. This is not hard. So anyway, that's that's kind of my review. I would say I wouldn't recommend watching it. If I had to rate it, I would give it a 5.5 out of 10. Um, I don't have any desire to pick it for our podcast to do a full in depth review on it because I'm disappointed with you. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. I won't make this long as I did my Ghostbusters one. So that's all I had. Thank you, and don't forget, don't go out there.